Welcome everybody to our part 2 of our 3-part LinkedIn live series titled #JLohrWomen. Join the conversation. Today we're going to be focused on what it's like to work in sales in the wine industry. I'm Jenifer Martinez, the HR director here, and today I am joined by some of my fellow teammates here on our J-Lohr team. So I'm going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves in a second. Did want to remind everyone that we are going to be doing a open Q&A session at the end. So if you have comments, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the comment section below. We'll keep an eye out for those. We want questions. And then please stay tuned to the end, because that is where you are going to find out how you can enter to win a shadow day with our J-Lohr leadership team. So without further ado, here's the rest of the team joining us today. Hello, ladies.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Hi. So why don't we go around? We'll just, whoever wants to start, maybe I'll just pick, we'll start with Jen Clarke, and have you just introduce who you are, your role here at J-Lohr, and how long you've been with us.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. As Jen mentioned, I'm Jenifer Clarke. I'm the National Accounts On-Premise Director for the East part of the United States for J-Lohr Vineyards and Wines. I will celebrate my 4-year anniversary with J-Lohr in May. And part of my job, or my primary responsibility, is calling on the corporate beverage directors for national account on-premise chains. So anything from restaurant chains to concessionaires to hotels, theater companies. So it's very varied, and it's really a great job, and I have a lot of fun with it. So happy to be here.
Great. Shauna?
Sure, yeah. My name is Shauna Troy, and I am the New England Regional Manager here at J-Lohr, and I will be celebrating 21 years in just about 3 weeks here at
She said
J-Lohr.
21 years, folks.
Awesome.
And it's been a great 21 years. So my primary role here, I actually oversee the New England states of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, and Vermont. I actually reside in New Hampshire, so I call on our distributors and also obviously deal with accounts as well, calling on accounts. So yeah.
All right. Thanks, Shauna. And last but not least, Jessica.
Yes, so I'm Jessica Kollhoff. I'm the Director of Hospitality and Direct Sales, and I am based in Paso Robles, California. So I oversee all the hospitality and sales associated with what I would say, direct interaction with a J-Lohr guest or visitor. So anybody coming through to our 2 wine centers, we have one in Paso Robles, one wine center in San Jose. Trade visitors, visitors that Shauna and Jenifer may send to us, or distributors who come through. Sales through jlohr.com, sales through Wine Club. So it's that interaction where a guest or a J-Lohr customer is coming direct to us for that experience or that purchase.
Very nice. A different part of sales.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it would be interesting. I'm always curious to find out how people got started in this industry, because sales is a lot like HR and, accounting and IT and a lot of other functions that companies have. How did you find yourself, and how did you end up in the wine industry? Whoever wants to talk.
I'll jump in. I'll try to be brief. And I didn't say earlier, I've been with J-Lohr 3.5 years. So I started shortly after Jen Clarke, and I've been in the industry for almost 20. So undergrad, I studied mathematical sciences with a computer science focus, and I was doing computer programming, e-commerce consulting out of college. And that was in New York and in San Francisco. And I did not love it. Like, I remember, coding at my computer, just thinking, oh my gosh, if I'm still doing this when I'm 40, I'm going to be so depressed. And I always wanted to get into the wine industry because I had this vision from, my parents exposed us to wine country when we were younger, and I loved agriculture. So I think just the beauty of the industry and being able to visit a few tasting rooms in my, adult but younger adult life gave me enough exposure that I thought that's where I want to be, and that's what I want to do. So I left e-commerce consulting in 2003 and moved down to San Luis Obispo County and gave it a go. And, my first interview for a taste room position, I was not hired, and I had to, regroup and think, okay, how can I tackle this? And I just kept trying, and eventually got my foot in the door. And I, haven't looked back since, but yeah, it was, just the right opportunity at the right time for me in this local area in Paso where I am now.
See, you can have a degree in something completely unrelated and still find your way to sales if it's something you truly want to do.
Well, and Jen, I would say the same thing. So I was a political science major at University of Maryland, so from that area, and I'm still very passionate about that. But I started working for a hotel company shortly out of college, and started to work with our event planner. And she was working with a lot of the hotels on the sales side, booking events, and I just became really interested in it. And I soon went to work for a hotel company in the Washington, D.C. area, and fell in love with it and did wine training there. And just, it was part of my daily responsibilities. And that's kind of how it evolved for me. I went to work for one of the largest distributors in the country, was there for almost 20 years. So kind of accidental for me. And I'm so glad that it happened.
Yeah. And Shauna, what about you?
It's funny hearing Jen talk about accidental, getting into the business. Growing up in high school and in college, I was in the restaurant business. And that definitely gave me exposure to food and wine. I was in fine dining. And while I majored in communications, I think what first interested me in the business was meeting a gentleman who was in the business, a supplier rep that used to come into the restaurant. And he really changed my idea of what I thought a salesperson was. So he gave me the interest in sales. And I remember not even being old enough to drink and waiting on he and his wife. And I was so nervous about opening up a bottle of wine. And I wasn't comfortable with it. And he put me at such ease and showed me what empathy was in this business. And then I'd like to think that my first cold call within sales was actually was going to an interview that was impromptu. A friend of a friend had told me about a national sales manager that was scheduled to be at the US Air Conference Center at Logan Airport in Boston. And I was just out of college, and I decided to show up and get myself buzzed in. And I asked for 10 minutes of his time. And from there it went. And he sent my resume to a distributor that had repped his product by where I lived. So I think that young, I don't know, maybe you just have another level of confidence, but I felt bold at the time, but it worked out.
Yeah. Hey, 21 years later, at least with us. So I would say so.
Yeah.
Well, I think what might be interesting also for our viewers, especially those who are thinking about getting into sales in the wine industry or in sales in general, is to have a little bit of an idea of what does a day in the life look like. Jen, do you mind telling us a little bit about what a day in the life looks like in your role? I'm sure it's different from day to day, but just a day.
Yeah, so you're right, Jen. It varies every single day. It's different, and that's one of the things I love about it. There's so much, new things going on, and brings a little bit of adventure and travel. I'm coming to you right now from my hotel room in Houston, where I am for some meetings this week. So definitely, it's something different every single day. But, obviously the customer interaction is very regular. They say sales is a contact sport. You want to make sure that you're reaching out, you're really having a lot of contact with your customers. So that's definitely foremost. But there's a lot of other things that go on behind the scenes. There's inventory management that we have to look at. We need to ensure that our customers have product available in the markets where they are for programs that we have in place. And there's a lot of, working on events, planning conferences, things like that we do with our customers, as well as just broader industry events. There's also working a lot in coordination with folks like Shauna, our regional managers, to make sure that our programs are in place, that we're all working together as a team, which I have to say here at J. Lohr really happens well. We work across, different divisions within the company, our marketing department to help with creative pieces. So there's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle, and it makes it, really, kind of just keeps you going in a lot of different ways. It's very creative every day. So it's really a lot of fun.
Nice. Anybody else want to share? Actually, I hope she doesn't mind, but I'm going to pick on Jessica just because she is on a different side of sales. Do you mind telling us a little bit about what a day looks like?
For sure. So it's similar to what Jen said. No 2 days are alike. There's a lot of diversity in what happens day in and day out. I can tell you what is consistent is that I have an amazing team who I work with. I have hospitality managers in both our San Jose and Paso Robles location. I have a dynamic director of wine club and direct consumer e-commerce. We have a hospitality trade team. So I have a lot of people who I am directly working with every day and, listening to, collaborating with, brainstorming with. So there's a lot of communication with my team and a lot of communication with the Lohr family and our marketing team on how we can, better experiences, looking at our direct consumer product portfolio. We have a lot of winery exclusive wines. So looking at what we're offering and how to showcase these wines. So communication, in person and on email, Teams, phone, there's just a lot of communication every day. And then I'm, because I have such a great team who's very present, a team of taste room hosts who are on the floor, greeting guests, conducting wine tasting, selling the wine. I'm not actually with, what you would consider the customer day in and day out, but when we have, trade visitors, distributors, or trade accounts come and visit, I'm very much involved in those visits and tours and such. So yeah, it's the team interaction and the interaction with other departments and the family that is my very consistent day in and day out. And with you, Jen.
That's right. Thanks for the shout out. I do want to just say hello. I think I saw some Todd popped on and said good evening to us, and a lot of other folks have joined us. John, Anastasia, I saw, and some other folks. So I do want to encourage you, if you're joining in, we'd love to get some questions from you. Please go ahead and leave those in the comments or just say hi. What do you want to get out of this session from us? But with that, why don't we move on? I'd be curious to know from each of you, what do you think are the most important skills that are necessary in your position?
I'll go, Jen.
Okay.
I would say for me, what I'm always thinking about is understanding and managing my priorities at any given time. We have a VP of sales here that often talks about big rocks and little rocks and getting things done and keeping our priorities. So time management has always been really key as we juggle as salespeople and asking for what we need. I think that it's important in our job as well to be able to learn how to listen. And are you actually hearing what people are telling you, what they need and want, and what their struggles are in the business? So I find that to be something that good skills to have, sure.
All right. Anyone else want to share what they feel are the most important skills to have in their position?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Shauna said about being a good listener. There's a saying that we were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And it's really, really how to tune into what your customer needs, because in order to be successful with them, you have to be addressing a need for them. It's best to be consultative and be a problem solver for them. So you really want to listen to what what their needs are. Also being a problem solver for them, and then also being creative and collaborating with our different team members across the company to bring new ideation to our customers as well. Definitely time management. There's so many things going on, being able to multitask, but really knowing, how to prioritize what needs to get done first and what's the top priority.
Yeah. All right. What I am curious this too, and I think others would want to hear this. What are your favorite aspects about working either in the wine industry or in your position in particular? Sell the people on working in sales, y'all.
I know, right? One thing I always say is we're extremely fortunate in that we work in a business, in an industry where, most of the time people are coming to us happy. Like they already know they like our product. In our case, they already know they love J. Lohr. So you're dealing with happy people who are, and this is a very much on the side of, hospitality too, where they're coming into the tasting room and so happy to be there and so happy to get to, experience J. Lohr on site and see in the production facility. So there's a level of, just dealing with people who really like your brand, your product, like wine country. And then for me, it's also just the fact that we work with such amazing people, and there's so many different interesting personalities in our industry and different, people who bring certain skill sets to the table. You have, very technical people, you have detail oriented people, you have creative people, you have sales, there's so many different interesting people who we work with. So it's, a couple of things from my end.
Yeah, I would definitely say the people also, Jessica. I think internally within J. Lohr, we all work together as a really strong, unified team, which is wonderful. It makes every day so much easier and so much more enjoyable. And also having just a wonderful product to sell that we're all, respectful of, we can get behind. We have a fun time presenting it, and we're honored to present it. But also in the industry, this industry is made up of a lot of very charitable people, our company included. And there are a lot of organizations within our company. We're honored to work in, as Jessica said, a fun, kind of business, but everybody is very willing to give back to the community in different ways. And that's very rewarding as well.
Yeah, I'd say stemming off of that, Jen, that, coming from a restaurant background growing up, I still love to work with the great service industry people, to your point, and engaging with customers, which is such a privilege to be able to do, listening and attempting to problem solve, with hopefully an end mutual benefit for everybody. I remember, being younger, and I had a stepfather in sales, and he would push me to get into the service industry to wait tables, in the restaurant business. And being young, I was reluctant, but had I not done that, I wouldn't have ended up where I am now. So yeah, I love that about this position and this job.
Sales is, very, very numbers driven and relationship driven. And I think those for sure help define success. But is there anything else that, any of you would say, like, how do you define success in your role?
Yeah, I definitely think, certainly we want to meet the company's goals and move those forward, and making sure that we are adhering to the company's priorities. This company has been awarded accolades from industry publications and from different other folks in the industry. And I think that's really rewarding too in our different channels. Different groups of us have been recognized for our work in the industry as well, and with our customers. So I think there's a lot of different levers and a lot of different metrics, but a lot of different ways to kind of measure that and feel successful together as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think also, Jen, yes, there's, metrics that can be measured, but there's also a lot that cannot be when you're in sales and hospitality. Mm-hmm. So, and that can sometimes be a challenge, because so often people want to know, like, did I exactly meet my goal? And my,
Right.
It's easy to say you hit your numbers or not, but there's all these soft skills as well. And so a big thing for me is, do I feel confident that my team has everything they need to execute and deliver at the quality of service and the level that the family and the brand would expect? And are we meeting, the culture standards of the company? So it's, these things are harder to measure. And sometimes you have to go like, more of, of your gut feeling or some of the verbal feedback you're getting, and make, decisions or provide feedback based on that. So
I think to Jessica's point too, it's, it's a personal thing too, in defining your own success in business. I have a thing where I like to check in with myself regularly, and ask myself, do I feel good about the account relationships I have and the distributor partnerships that I have, that I'm building? Am I always moving with integrity and with transparency? Am I opening new doors regularly? How does my engagement look? How's my follow through? I think it's good for me in making sure I'm on track with my own personal success in sales.
Yeah. I love that, Shauna. I think those are great check-in questions that we could all benefit from, kind of just asking ourselves periodically, and make sure that we're good, and it kind of gets you back on track if you're straying from it a little bit too. Let me ask you this. If a young professional or just professional, is like, I want to get into this wine industry. These gals have sold me. What they want to end up in your shoes, what should they be doing today? Whether it's someone who's in college, out of college, wants to make a career change, what should they be doing?
I'd say just be aware of opportunities where you can get your foot in the door. And, I grew up in California, and I chose to move, physically to wine country. So there were a lot of opportunities in terms of, you might just have to start off part-time in the taste room if that's what is available. But I think what's great with this industry, and, I've been fortunate to work at wineries where the production is happening on site, and there, are estate-owned vineyards where we're sourcing fruit, and there's a lot of experts around. So you get your foot in the door and you start listening and learning, and then you'll figure out your path. And there's a lot of different paths within the industry. I think everyone here, there was at some point a door that opened, and you jump in and see what happens, and again, listen and learn, and kind of figure out where your skill set aligns with opportunities within the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Jessica. And, be willing to start in a different role, because you're not going to hop into one of these roles, from the gate. So be willing to learn, be willing to start different places, be willing to get experience in all different parts of the business. So in a restaurant, waiting tables, like Shauna said, and then if it's distributor side or supplier side, and just know that it's a competitive business. People get in and they tend to stay here. They don't necessarily, they might go to a different company, but they're probably not going to leave the industry because everybody likes the business. So I would say patience, do what you can to learn what you can about the wine business, or if it's a spirits business, whichever side, so take some of that on your own. And then just, honing your communication skills and things like that. Definitely networking too.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah.
To echo what Jen said too, I do think it's about getting to a place, I guess, in life where you're trying to understand customer service and what makes a good salesperson, figuring out the kind of salesperson that you want to be, and how to engage with others, so that you're building trust, and that you feel that you can be engaged. And as I mentioned earlier, working towards that common goal with people.
Yeah. I think those are all great pieces of advice. So thank you. I think we do have some questions that have come in. So why don't we see if we can offer any advice or answer some of these questions at least. I know one popped up, and someone is saying that they are in their first year of wine sale. They're a first I'm just going to read it. I'm a first year wine sales rep, and I'm struggling to find confidence in selling and not feeling pushy. How do you overcome those struggles? Who wants to take a...
So that's a great question. And I have a story about when I was in my first year of wine sales, and I had one account that that was very intimidating. And I was just learning about wine. I didn't know a whole lot about it. And I was intimidated to go see this particular buyer. And it took him calling me before I actually went in. And I was so disappointed with myself that I let that happen. But I was honest. I was honest about what I knew. I told him I would get back to him if I didn't have an answer on something, and just be comfortable with it. If you're worried about being pushy, just make it a conversation when you're talking about the wine, instead of maybe trying to say, this is XYZ. Maybe try to make it a conversation, engage your buyer in it. So to see kind of where their level of education is and how comfortable they are with it. But, just be confident in yourself too, to know that you're going about it the right way. I think you're right to have those concerns. That means that you don't want to put somebody off. So I think it's a good concern to have, but just, you have to learn your confidence as you get more, as you have more experience, you'll have that.
Yeah. Okay, great. We have another question that came in. What are the options, or what options are there for persons like me who are considering this as a second career? I think, I'll just chime in real quick, and then I'd love to hear if any of you have feedback. But I think Jessica kind of, spoke to this earlier, is just looking for opportunities to just get your foot in the door. Maybe, like she said, maybe it's you have your full-time career now and you look for a part-time tasting room position, or something else part-time at a winery or somewhere else within, the wine and spirits or other kind of industry. Take some certifications and start learning that way too. There's WSET and I don't want to, what is the other one? Thank
CSW.
you. CSW. So there's things like that. Do any of you have any other advice for this person?
I would just say most of us probably had a career prior to the wine industry. I mean, it's oftentimes the second career for many people. And then, like Jen said, once you land here, people don't leave because it's so great. So yeah, try not to let it intimidate you. I know, granted, I had only been working in the real world for 4 years before I entered the wine industry, but I do remember that first interview not getting hired because I didn't have previous experience. And I know when we're hiring for hospitality, of course, we, prefer that people have some sort of wine knowledge, obviously wine interest, but if they don't have previous experience, that's not going to hold that person back from, if they have the right personality and they're interested and you can tell that they're going to engage with the team and the visitor, we're going to bring them on. So yeah, just don't let that hold you back from trying.
Yeah.
So important to be yourself, in this business, because one salesperson that works great for a certain amount of accounts maybe isn't the salesperson that works great for the next set of accounts. And so it's important to realize that you can change your hats in different situations, and that just being yourself is going to help.
Mm-hmm. All right. We have another question that came in. Do you have to be a wine expert, SOM certified?
No. I mean, I've always, when I was hiring people, I always actually looked for sales personality and sales skills before I looked for that type of certification. If you are, if you're good with sales, then we can teach you the wine part that you need to know. So, obviously to have some working knowledge of the wine industry or the wine business is certainly helpful, because you will need to know it, but it's not necessarily coming in.
Yeah.
Someone once told me in an interview, they said, I don't care what's in your cellar at all. I care if you know how to sell and if I want to sit down and have dinner with you. And that was something that always stuck with me, that it wasn't going to always be about the geeking out in wine or what I was collecting.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, Jen, for somebody who's looking for this as a second career, I think also being aware of which company you're applying for a job with, and is that company, do they have a culture of, educating and nurturing that advancement? Because if you align yourself with the right company and the right people, you will learn and you'll be able to advance in that career.
Yeah. Here's a question for you all, just because we have, Shauna and Jen here that are working kind of more on the national sales, and then Jessica, who's more D2C sales or direct to consumer. Can one of you explain the difference between D2C, direct to consumer, and national sales?
I think if we look at, national sales on and off premise, it is, and oftentimes, and Shauna can chime in, and obviously Jessica, but oftentimes it's a little bit longer of a relationship building process and a little bit longer of a sales process. D2C is a little bit different, which Jessica can speak to. But I think that it's a little bit different way of looking at the sales process, how long it takes, planning it out, and how you work with your customer in that way and with your goals. So, Jessica, Shauna, if you want to chime in.
Yeah. And I think, just backing it up a step for those who, haven't been exposed to the industry yet. With national sales, you're oftentimes working with, there's a distributor who's selling, and, Shauna and Jen should explain this, who's selling to accounts, be it whether it's retail stores, grocery stores, restaurants. And so there's a lot of, different moving parts. I mean, you all should chime in on the chain of events that come into play to get your wine ultimately to the shelf or the restaurant table. And with direct consumer, it's literally, there's no middle, there's no distributor, there's no other account involved. So it's you, the producer, or, the hospitality team or direct consumer team who's selling directly to that person who takes that wine home and shares it or drinks it alone or does whatever. But so it's very, on my team, it's, for example, people coming in or people shopping online and maybe buying 2 bottles, maybe buying a case or 2 cases. And, hopefully they'll come back, hopefully they'll join the wine club, but there's, this immediate relationship and oftentimes an immediate sale. But smaller volume with each relationship, if you will.
Yeah.
So just, different nuances, and we're all in it for the same, reason. If we, from a direct consumer standpoint, if somebody comes and visits a tasting room and has an amazing experience and doesn't buy, but we know that we enhanced their, love of J. Lohr, and they know more about the story and the brand, that could in turn support that they might go now to a store and be more likely to buy J. Lohr or be more likely to pick it on a restaurant list. So we have to know that there's successes in that route too.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. It's a little bit more transactional, but hopefully it's building a different type of relationship with that consumer.
Yeah, there's so many different other touch points on this side of the business too, whether it's about building our own relationship with buyers, our distributor reps also building their own relationships with buyers, as well as, as a customer, you can shop wherever you want, and you're going to choose a retailer that you really like. Maybe you just enjoy shopping the store, or you get the customer service that you want. So there's so many things that go into that. Often I'll be in a store and looking at product on the shelves and have an opportunity, if a customer asks me, what I think of a certain Cabernet, or if I want to suggest something. So there's opportunities everywhere on this side of sales for sure.
Yeah, and Shauna, I would say on your end of the business, I suspect like the amount of partnerships that you need to form along the way, and working out with your sales reps, and like you said, that the buyers, there's a lot of teamwork and partnerships to get to that end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, here's a fun one for everybody. Do you have a favorite sales story or experience that has impacted your career?
So I have kind of a funny one that I used to always say when I got into sales that I really had to be passionate about what I was selling and really had to love the product. And I used to always use this example that, for example, I wouldn't want to sell zippers. And I was at dinner one time I was on the distributor side, and I was with a wine company whose wines we represented. And I brought that up during the conversation. I said, yeah, I just can't imagine selling zippers. And he said, I used to sell zippers. And I said, no way. And he said, yes. And he made it so glamorous. He's like, I was calling on the fashion houses in New York. I was doing this. I'm like, why'd you leave? And it was just so eye-opening that it really shows you that you never want to, close your eyes to a certain opportunity because you have a preconceived notion. So it really shows you that there's a lot of places where you can be successful and sell something that ends up being fantastic for you.
Yeah.
It was funny.
It could have been part of New York Fashion Week or something,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Who would have thought? All right. Anyone else have a story they would like to share?
I feel like any business, this one is always evolving as well. I mean, 25 years ago, when I got into it, we were running routes and you had a pager, and that's how people got a hold of you, or a beeper, and you had to find a payphone to call people back, and you were putting your orders in through a Telzon machine that had to connect just right with the payphone. And, it's constantly moving, and technology is fabulous. It's given us some great things that make our job easier. But it also reminds us that we need to sometimes put that down and still engage with the customer. I think if it's okay to say, I have this story, I'm going to try to make it really short, that was more about a turning point for me in a position as a supplier about 20 years ago. I met with a distributor, and I was in a GSM with them, with the team, and trying to talk to them about work withs and how I could help them, and asking them if I could spend days with them. And I think they were testing me, and I had to earn, my keep and prove myself to them for sure, as I was new at the time. But I remember one rep saying, "Oh, you don't need to ride with me, Shauna. Just give me a picture and I'll put it in my car and it'll remind me to sell your product." And I thought to myself, there were no questions after that. That was the only feedback I got. So I drove home and I thought about it. And of course, I got approval from my manager. But what I decided to do was I went online and I made air fresheners to hang on their rear view mirrors with my photo on it.
That's
of course, vanilla scented.
That's great.
And I hand delivered them to the distributor, and the sales supervisor there was fantastic. He laughed and he said, "I want you to know that we hear you, and okay." Said, "Hey, you got to help me help you." And so that's what you asked for. So I made it happen.
I love that. I'm picturing Shauna's face with, I'm just going to use J. Lohr now, but I think we should get Shauna J. Lohr. People should hang those from their rear view mirrors. I'm for it.
One side said, "Sell more Lohr."
Marketing. Well, let's take one more question and then we'll wrap it up. I think this is very appropriate as our last question. Why is wine sales more fun than sales in other industries? Maybe besides the zipper example.
I haven't done sales in another industry. I've worked in a couple of different facets within the wine industry, but again, I think so much of it is the connections with people and I think the passion of the people in this industry, whether they're with a restaurant or a wine store, or they're new to wine tasting, or they've gone to multiple AVAs and are very studious wine tasters. I think it's just like the people side. I mean, the product is so much fun. It brings so many, there's so many memories that people tie to wine and share those memories. But it's the stories and the connections, I think, that make it so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, it's all very experiential. Wine changes, you open the bottle and it changes, in an hour, it changes in a day. And just, the whole travel and food and wine experience. I think all of that tied together with the people just makes it a really special industry to be part of.
I think it's so important too to just remember that we have to always continue to educate. That's our job, is to be able to talk um, and really separate out what makes our brand different from others. Because there is a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of wine out there, and you never know everything that there is to know in this business, which is such a beautiful thing, and it never gets boring, even if you just look at it from a perspective of vintages are always changing, so the wine's always changing. But yeah, it's the education. We talk about our story here of family, place, and craft, our three pillars, and it's constant talk about that.
Yeah. Well, and I came from outside the wine industry, and I have to say, I'm not an expert by any means, but I have learned so much since being here about what produced and bottled means. I had no clue as a wine consumer before, and so I think, yeah, the education, Shauna, is such a big part. So with that, though, I guess we'll wrap it on up here, and just thank everyone so much for tuning in and spending the afternoon with us. And we do have one more session. Our next session is wine science, so viticulture and enology, and that's going to be on March 23rd at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to have our winemaker of white wines, Kristen Barnheisel, with us, as well as our viticulturist and vineyard research director, Angie Perry, and I'll be moderating again. We do want you to go ahead, if you're interested, apply for our physical and virtual shadow days. You can do that at jlohr.com/jlohrwomen. That'll take you and give you all the information there that you'll need to go ahead and apply for those. Selected shadow day participants will then be notified in April, and the shadow day sessions will take place in late spring, early summer 2023. So we hope that you got something out of this. We again appreciate the time that you gave up to spend with us, and hopefully you got something out of it, are encouraged to look at sales or marketing, or like I said, we have upcoming wine science, but to think about an opportunity in the wine industry. So thank you again. And I don't have wine, but I have water. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.